You can go through any situation in business or otherwise, but unless your mindset is right, you'll probably not succeed as well as you could.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Irish Success Podcast. Today we have Donna Slattery, who is an international speaker, personal coach, business advisor, and also entrepreneur. And today we're gonna focus on education, because anybody who's in business, they should be also educating themselves, but nobody knows how. And today we're gonna go talk about seminars, books. Donna has written multiple bestseller books. So how are you, Donna?
I'm absolutely fantastic and delighted to be here.
Thank you. Could you tell us a few words about yourself, how you started, and what brought you on the journey of entrepreneurship and teaching people?
Yeah, well, like with a lot of people who go on to do great things, they probably had a rough start. So as you'll notice, a lot of people who are billionaires, they may have no education from school or very little. You'll find that people who are, who've gone on to do certain things have had that struggle. So the same as myself. I mean, I would have went through different things as a child, and that kind of led to obviously me recovering and your mindset, and then that kind of spiraled into psychology, and then coaching and so on. It's a natural progression when you go through something and then you come out the other side.
Well done. On your website, I've seen couple of pictures that caught my attention. Pictures with people like Bob Proctor and Brian Tracy. Those are some incredible names in the personal growth industry. How did you manage to get so big to be able to being on speaking events with people like that,
Yeah, well, a lot of them are friends. Bob unfortunately passed away, as you probably know.
Yes.
But it's, again, birds of a feather flock together. So for me, my mindset is very important. It always has been, because I know the power of it. You can go through any situation in business or otherwise, but unless your mindset is right, you'll probably not succeed as well as you could. So mindset was very much to the fore of my mind. So I literally sought out people who I felt were had good brains, they had good results beyond average. I went to their seminars. I spoke with them. I had no agenda other than learning. And they met up with me, and obviously they liked me, and we were friends ever since.
I think that the takeaway lesson for people who are watching this podcast should be that they should always educate themselves in terms of business. But many people see the reasons why they should do it, and not many people know how to do it. So our job is to convince people that they should do it. How would they do it? Where should they go? You've written multiple best-selling books. Maybe we should flick through them and you could tell people what they're all about. So if anybody's interested, they could purchase your book maybe. And then we're going to go to the events. And then we're going to tell people about the Irish seminars.
Sure.
We should promote it because not many people know about those things, and they're incredible as well.
Well, listen, there's one thing I would always say, and your mindset is your money set. Mark Victor Hansen wrote...
Mindset is your money set. Brilliant.
Yes, absolutely. And Mark Victor Hansen, is not my saying, but he actually said it to me in a conversation. He wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, which has sold 600 million copies. And again, if you study people, go back to Napoleon Hill, who came before, or Nightingale, they all came before Bob Proctor. His work is based on their teachings and additions, obviously. But it's all about your mindset and what is it that makes somebody beyond average successful. You could have, for example, two people who own a specific industry type or a specific company. And you look at one person who may not have an academic, brain, or they may not have a silver spoon, born into a wealthy family or whatever, yet they go on to create an absolute empire with loads of franchises. So you have to look at what is the difference, because it's certainly not scale, it's certainly not, just contacts. And I have found, because I studied success intentionally, I met up with so many different people. I'm talking about Olympians, billionaires, anybody playing at a top level. Rather than, the way I look at it is, if I want to be a Michelin star chef, I'm not going to go down to the local canteen and learn the recipes. I'm going to find the best. I'm going to learn their ingredients, and I'm going to copy them and model their strategies. And that's what I did when it comes to business and personal development. I found people who I felt were playing at a much higher level than the average person. And I watched what was the difference between them and somebody else who is in the same industry type, yet doesn't have the results. And there didn't seem to be any major kind of difference when it came to intelligence or when it came to something like that. The people would normally, they're very smart, so that means they're going to be very successful. They were very much on mindset. So if a struggle came, they didn't say, well, you know, I'm not smart enough or I failed or whatever. They just kept plowing on. They had that persistence, they had the perseverance, and that got them through. And interestingly, actually, I was watching a program called Naked and Afraid recently, which is, many people probably know it, but it's where they put two people, normally a male and a female, into an area where it's very difficult to survive, and they're given 21 days to survive, and they're only allowed to bring one tool each. So they basically go in with nothing. And they're given what's called a PSR at the beginning. And your PSR is your personal survival rate, which is based on your experience, it's based on your skill level, and it's based on your mental approach. And what you can see consistently is that somebody can have a lot of skills, so they might know how to start a fire or to build a shelter. They may have a lot of experience of doing that, but their mental approach then is what kicks in after maybe day 3 or 5. And if they have a poor mental approach, they just want to go home. It's the people who push through. And the one I was watching recently, there was a guy, and out of 10, he had a survival rate of 8.7. And the girl had a survival rate of 6.2. They were put into a place, a swamp area in Louisiana. The place flooded, it was thunderstorms. They literally had to build a fire on a platform. And the guy wanted to go home on day 5. And she got behind him and she focused him and she put him back on track and got his mindset right, and they stayed to day 21. So it's the mindset, in my opinion, and that's the difference I've noticed between people who perform at a beyond average level as opposed to someone maybe in the same industry or field that don't perform it. They just prefer kind of mediocre, which is fine. But if someone wants to know the ingredients to success, mindset is, I would go as far to say, 70 to 80%.
Yeah. Do you believe the mindset comes from our childhood? Is the way that we've been raised?
Partially. There's lots of different schools of thought. I mean, there's one school of thought, everything, you know, that happens before you're 5, that predicts the rest of your life. But then you have to look at, someone could have a fantastic childhood, then they could go through something at, say, 22 or 92, and all of a sudden their mindset completely changes. I personally think it's based on your conditioning, what you're around. So that could be when you're a child, but also when you're a child, you might have had a horrendous childhood, yet you change your environment and you start to be around people who have a good mindset, have good values, and you will become like the people you're around. I mean, you look at even your accent. When you came here, you may have spoke English, you may not have, but your accent changed over time because you are around it. You didn't sit down intentionally and say, well, I'm going to change my accent. It just happens. And that happens for your accent, but it also happens for your mentality. It happens for your approach to life. It happens for your attitude, and it happens for your business skills. So you will become who you're around. It's as simple as that.
So it's about surrounding yourself with people. Do you know who I look up to when I think about the mental attitude and how to get bigger in business? I look at athletes. Because if you look at the best athletes in the world, they all have one thing that they have in common. And it's that attitude. Like Muhammad Ali, he always used to repeat, I cannot be beaten. I am the best. Same with the McGregor and all the top athletes, isn't it? They all know, and they knew from the start that they will be good. That's the funny thing about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've talked to a lot of those people, and they do have that attitude. They do go through the struggles. They do have moments where they don't feel that they'll get through. But it's looking at your majority mindset of what is it that gets you through? What is it that makes you tick? What is it that if you look throughout your whole life, the times where you felt like giving up, could be small things. What was it did you do in your head? For example, some people might be determined, or they might be an angry person. Use that anger, fuel it into being stubborn, and I'm going to do it anyway. You know, if you're a people person, use that ability and fuel it into your goals. You know, you have to use your personality traits and turn them for the good. I mean, when I was younger and I was basically destroying myself,
how?
I was actually anorexic. Due to the fact when I was younger, I was raped, didn't know how to cope with it, and I just went on to, that was my coping mechanism. And really, when you're in that mentality and you feel like giving up, you have to look at a strategy that will work. And somebody telling you to eat or feel good, it's like anybody. If you have a bad day in business and someone comes in and they might sound a bit patronizing and say, "Oh, you'll be fine. You'll get through this," and when you don't feel that you're going to be fine, then you have to go to a different place. You have to approach it differently, completely. One thing I find is that if you have a personality trait, use that and channel it into what it is that you want. So I'd be very stubborn, not in a bad way, but I'd also I used anger to fuel making myself so bad that I was given a week to live. So how did I use that ability? And I know this may sound ridiculous, but it works. I use that focus and that drive to actually fuel it into something positive. So if you look at it, I was getting a result, although it was a dangerous and a bad result, it was a very effective result. Although, as I said, and just to stress that, I don't recommend it. But it was a let's say it was a beyond average result, but in a negative way. So how did I get that result, good or bad? Fuel it into something good. And if you look at anybody who's successful, they do anchor moves, so they might, do something with their hands. They do something where they can, an anchor is basically where you associate an emotion with a movement, or you can associate that emotion with doing something. And that kind of things work. You also look at athletes, they will visualize, which basically means you think about something before it's happened and it's been a successful outcome. So you'll see that a lot of golfers in particular, if you look at a golfer, they'll run the shot in their mind before they even pick the club up. And then when they pick the club up, they pause.
There's a brilliant story of a golfer who learned how to play golf in jail, and then he came out and he was the best because he was practicing that.
But there's a part of your brain called your limbic system, and it can't tell the difference on a neurological level between what's real or imagined. So what it does is it starts to wire whatever you imagine and associate feelings with it. So for example, on the flip side, if you have ever been to a horror movie, your logical brain knows that it's not real. You have probably seen that actor in different movies, maybe even a comedy. It's green screen, it's special effects, yet the scary bit comes on, your heart starts to go up, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your sweat glands might activate, definitely chemicals, cortisol, adrenaline, yet in your logical brain that that's not real. So what is it that drives that? Well, it's your limbic system, and it's a part of your brain that at a neurological level, which is the level that matters when it comes to behaviour, it can't tell the difference. Can't all tell the difference between what's negative or positive. So if I say to you, don't think of a pink elephant, you're going to think of it.
All I see is a pink
even though
elephant.
I said don't. Yeah. So we can use that information, and that is the beauty of educating yourself, because if you use that simple fact and you rehearse things that you want in your mind and you keep doing it, importantly adding emotion to it, because that really does embed it. And if you keep doing that over and over and over and over, your brain takes it that it's real. So this is why athletes know this. I mean, they're trained, you have sports coaches, they train them in this stuff. People hear the word visualization and they think it's airy-fairy. And then
do you know what's caused it? I think a couple of very specific books out there caused it, because in those very books, people said that all you have to do is visualize. But visualizing is just a part of the recipe. There's 10 other ingredients that you have to put in the pot.
Well,
like the emotions.
I can visualize I win the lotto. Well, great for me. There are visualization keeps you focused. It's what I call conscious detection. So if I say to you, we're going to go to a black tie ball and I need a red dress, I'm going to see red dresses everywhere. Or you say you want to buy a new car and you decide you want a BMW. Guess what you see everywhere on the roads?
Everywhere, BMW.
Exactly, because you've set it as an intention. It's in your mind, and now your brain starts to detect it. So you're detecting it consciously for the most part in that case. So visualization is a part of it in the sense that it's focusing your mind on what to look out for, on what to attract to you. So again, if you're looking for a new car and you will see those cars, you'll start to notice ads on TV, you'll start to notice ads on social media, and it's focusing your mind, and the more you think about it, it's almost like you become engrossed in it until you have it. It's the same, exactly the same for any behaviour, any skill you have to learn, any business approach. Skills are a certain level, visualization is part of it, action is part of it. And I know the books you're on about without even telling you.
I didn't want to mention it.
And those books did very much, especially the movie. I mean, in one particular, and I've worked with a lot of people in one of the most recent books, which, I don't mind saying. I mean, I assume you're on about The Secret, which is. No, Bob Proctor was one of the main guys in The Secret. I have huge respect for him. I've worked with Laura Langemeyer. There's other people there that I've worked with in that. And one thing that's missing, and I've actually done an interview with Bob that's recorded on YouTube on this. One thing that they don't talk about is a law called the law of vibration. which basically is you have to do something. You can't just visualize. But just visualizing, it's a nice juicy concept, it sells, it's easy, and people like the quick fast approach. That's what they like, the easy approach. So if somebody tells you, you visualize and it'll turn up, well, great, that's easy, I'll do that then. Then people get disappointed a year later or however long, 5 seconds later, when it doesn't happen.
I think when they were marketing that book, they intentionally didn't put this in that book, because that way the book sells as something very simple, just visualize. But if there was a chapter about the action, then people were like, I have to do something now.
Possibly.
Maybe it wouldn't sell as good. Maybe it was a strategy.
That's what I mean. It's a nice juicy idea that you just do nothing. You visualize.
People love it.
But none of those people actually think that. I mean, you look at all those people, there's some of the smartest, hardest workers you meet. They're people who actually get out there and they do. And you can't have any business or anything worthwhile in life unless you actually take action. You know, you stay in bed all day and visualize, well, nothing's going to happen. You have to get out there, you have to do stuff. But the key is to do it smartly and to do it around the right people and to find things that have shown to work time again, over time, consistently. They're the things that you repeat. As I said, with a Michelin star chef, if it's with an athlete, I'm going to ask the athlete, if I want to run, 400 meters in the shortest amount of time, how do I do it? What do you do to improve? What kind of clothes do you wear? What kind of, shoes do you wear? Do you have to do anything specific? Do you have a routine you do beforehand? I want to know all of this because they've done it. They've done it successfully. They've done it in a way that fails. They've tried both approaches and they know exactly what works. So to me, it makes sense to look for the things that work, regardless of how mad they might seem. If they work, they work. And sometimes in business or in life, you have to just put, the I know everything out of the way and not be so proud and just be open to learning. You have to be teachable. And as long as you stay teachable, you'll consistently improve.
I tell you, I love this podcast because not very often I get somebody here who likes to talk about this stuff. Usually people avoid that topic. And I was listening to Tom Smith's book. He's an entrepreneur from Belfast. And he was very specific about the visualization. He was even saying that when he does that, he even pictures the shirt that he's wearing, the car that he's driving, the smell that's in the car. He'd be so vividly specific about those details,
It's because you're engaging your neurology, your nervous system. I mean, you have nerves that are firing inside of you all the time. If I, even on a physical level, if I go into a gym and I pick up a weight, you're not going to see anything happen the first day I pick it up. But if I consistently pick it up and consistently raise the bar, over time, you'll see a muscle grow. Nevertheless, on day one, your neurons are firing. So the system has been set up. It depends on how often you do it. So you just set up the system. You visualize what you want, but then you have to take action. I can visualize myself, with a fantastic toned body, but at the end of the day, if I don't go and I don't do anything, well, good luck to me. So there's two elements to it. Visualization keeps you focused. It tells you exactly what you want. It clarifies your goals. The clearer your goals are, the easier they are to achieve. Think of Google Maps. If I type in somewhere, or if I type in New York, I might get to New York or somewhere, but possibly not to exactly where I want to get to, unless I type in the exact address. So with your goals, you have to type in, if you like, the exact address of where you want to go. And the clearer you are, the easier you get there.
Let's talk about another ingredient in this magical recipe, which I know works, and I know you know it works because you have something special here. Let's talk about this. Tell us about gratitude and how could we practice it. Could you show people with the camera what this is?
Gratitude, we're in this camera, are we?
Yes.
Yeah, gratitude is something that is probably gone a bit fluffy in the concept. Be grateful for something and your life will be wonderful. Again, it's just like a loose thing. So I used to think that, it's a nice idea, be thankful for what you have, but I was brought up on the thing, be grateful for what you have. There's other people who don't have that. I think everyone in Ireland was brought up with that one, probably across the world, which is fine, but it kind of desensitizes you to the importance of it. So when I was at one of my worst days, and I literally was given a week to live, I didn't know how to get better.
How old were you back then, if you don't mind asking?
At this particular day, I was 15. Now, there was a very easy cure for me, actually. The simplest cure that you could ever imagine. To eat. Everyone can do it. It's so easy. Yeah, there was a part of my brain that wouldn't allow me to do that because there was an emotional link. So this particular day, my mom actually said to me, because I'd come out of a short coma, and she said to me, I don't know how to help you. And I said, well, I don't either. So she said, as she always said, I prayed about it. And she asked me to write down 10 things I was grateful for. And I couldn't think of one, because I was in a bubble of complete self. And if somebody is in like a state where they're, they're just focused on all the negative all the time, it's like being in a bubble and you can't see the obvious. Or it's about, it's like holding your fist in front of your face and seeing beyond it. You can't. So she asked me to write down things I was grateful for, and I couldn't think of anything. So she actually said, I'll start you off. And she said, you've got hands, could you be grateful for them? And I said, fine, I'll put them down. So I did. And then she said, well, what do you do? Can you do with your hands? You're good at art. So she put that down. And it took, I think it was about 39 things before I actually felt grateful, which sounds sad, but that is a fact. That's how inside my mind I was. Now, also, years later, I had a car accident. Thankfully, I got better, as you can see from that. But years later, I had a car accident, and I was in hospital. And I was feeling kind of like, again, a little bit back to square one, because I had got better. I was in college. I was doing really well. I was top of my class. I was doing really, really well. And I got knocked back the second time, if you like. And I found it harder to actually get back up the second time, which many people wonder, how is that possible? Because I kind of like had a trial run because all the systems that I had learned didn't seem to be working. So I went back to what was it that kind of gave me that nudge to get out of my head and to focus. And actually went back to gratitude, and I looked at anything I could be grateful for. And I realised that when you're grateful in that sense, like in an intentional sense, not just be grateful for what you have, and when you actually list and itemize things, what starts to happen is you create a level of abundance. You're focused on what you do have, which is easier to build on than focusing on what you don't have and lack, which is like a void or just a hole. So every day I say 10 things. That's why it's called that. And I say 10 things I'm grateful for, but I itemize them. When you get to 10, it's actually hard to stop. So you feel like you're in an abundant mindset. I already have this, so I can get more. And you can't get more unless you feel that you have something. I mean, if you're constantly looking for, well, I don't have this, or they have this and I don't, or resenting people, or... I
think the reverse of that would be looking at the Explore page of Instagram. The reverse of gratitude.
Probably. Well, I mean, if you look at even at social media, I mean, it's an unrealistic view of life. But people that's what information they're giving their heads. It goes back to what I was saying, the environment you're in will determine who you become. So if you're on Instagram, your brain takes an environment as being anything that's outside your head or inside your head. So if I'm visualizing something in my head all the time, it's going to affect my body chemically. It'll start to fire certain neurons. If I'm visualizing something outside of my head, it will equally start to fire chemicals in my body. So if I'm on Instagram or I'm on Twitter or whatever, and I'm seeing negative stuff all of the time, my brain has to respond to that. So if I say, again, as I said, think of a green frog, you think of it, you're not going to have much of a chemical reaction because there's nothing major to it. But if I start describing something that's really negative and I do it in a really low tone of voice, it's very hard for you to get excited. But if I put energy behind something and start talking about something positive, whether I tell you to or not, you start to feel positive, you start to feel energetic. And that's the key, is to focus and to engross your mind in positivity and productive things.
Do you know where also we could find a lot of the gratitude practices? And I like the fact about that because it's been done for many, many years. Religion. Catholic religion specifically. Starting your dinner, praying to the food, and I believe that the vibration when you're praying affects the food itself, because there have been experiments done on it, and I actually carried one myself on rice, the rice experiment. When you speak positively to rice and then you speak negatively to the other glass, there are changes in the visual appearance of the rice after 3 days.
Yeah, they do the same with plants.
Yeah, I've done it on the plants as well. Yeah. I didn't want to talk about it. People will think I'm crazy.
Yeah, it does sound a bit crazy, and I'm not, I don't engross my mind too much in it, but, even religion, I'm not particularly religious myself from a formal sense.
Either am I, yeah, but
I do believe there's something
some of the
bigger.
stuff, if it's cherry-picked, it works.
Yeah, well, I think prayer does work because it's focusing your mind. It's bringing your mind into an intentional point of view. So if you're praying on something specific, it's the exact same as visualization. I mean, if you're praying for someone, you imagine the person, you imagine them being well or whatever it is. If you're praying to say you're grateful, you're imagining what you have. Your body is going to feel good doing that. I think for me, I think it'd be very naive to think that there's not something bigger than us. So I do believe that there's something. I just haven't boxed that into any particular religion. But I do believe in something bigger.
100%. Yeah, because I studied religions for a long, long time. That was actually one of my hobbies for a long time, because there's so many. I think there's 4,200 different religions and sects. And the funny thing is that
It took you a while then.
every single one of these people, some of these people will go as far as letting them cut their heads off in the name of their religion. That's how they sure they are that their religion is right,
Well, it goes back to what you believe. I mean, if you believe that something's justified, you're going to do it. You look at people even that isn't religious, like jealousy, which kills so many businesses, it kills so many goals. It's all based on belief systems. If you believe that, well, they shouldn't have this because I don't, or this is what I believe about that kind of people, or this is what I believe about that race, or this is what I believe about that religion, or whatever, you justify it. And that justification, I mean, that's, becomes a belief, and then you're in all sorts of bother if it's negative. So I would be very careful.
Yeah, I think we should give guys, whoever watches us here, we should give them some specifics on how to change their, what they're absorbing, so maybe we could give them some specific what should they follow, because that's what I did at the start. I unsubscribed from everything that I had on social media when I started finding all this stuff, and I started learning. I unsubscribed from everything that I could unsubscribe to, and then I started subscribing to different things,
Well, essentially then you're creating the environment that you want to be in, which will affect your thinking, which is very smart. Specifics are, look at how you spend your time. That's the first thing. I would say, for anybody, if you look at your life, ultimately, if people are making money in business, if people are setting goals, if people have a family, if people do whatever they want to do, they're doing it for one reason, and that is to live their life in a way that they want to live. I mean, nobody goes to work for 60 hours a week and does it just for fun. The most part, they do it to get money. Why do they want that money? Is it to have a bank balance? Probably not. It's what they can do with that bank balance. In other words, their life. So if you look at you've got your lifeline or your lifetime, and you look intentionally at, how am I trading it? So for every minute you give to something, you're trading it for not something else. So if I give, for example, the time I'm here now, I'm trading my time with you, then time I could be with my family, for example, or I could be doing something at work or whatever it is. So you want to make sure that every single bit of your time is valued. So if you're scrolling on social media, are you valuing your time really? You're not, unless it's positive stuff, unless it's productive. If you're spending you're spending your time with conversations with people, every time you talk to them, they're dragging you down, that's not really a good use of your lifetime, because you can't get lifetime back, but you can spend it wisely. And I look at how I trade my time. So I don't give out my number to everybody. Why? People think, can I have your number? No. The reason I don't give my number is not because I feel particularly, important or anything like that. It's simply because I know that I'll get people who don't value my time. So if I'm meeting somebody, there's always a reason why I'm meeting them. People often say to me, and the phrase, I want to pick your brains. I don't want my brains to be picked, but I gladly have a conversation with you.
Could you talk about some of the books? Because you have written not one, not two, not three, but multiple best-selling books. Could you start with the one about the property, which you don't have here with you, unfortunately, but that's one of the first ones you have written, isn't it?
Yeah, my first book was called Step On, Step Up. It's still available. It's, one of the banks bought a huge number of copies initially when it came out. So the reason for that is they were giving them to first-time buyers. I rented property, obviously, as most people do, unless you're living at home. And I got sick of renting property. I got sick of, at the end of it, I had nothing. So I looked at a way that I could buy property and own my property, and then buy property and rent it out. I met up with people who were doing it, who were doing very well. And I just felt that, at the time when I wrote the book, I was quite young. And what age was I? 28, I think it was. That
was some achievement. Being 28 to write the book, and then major banks are buying your book for people. It's a great achievement, isn't it?
Well, for me, I wrote it. I just felt that it would be useful, because a lot of books at that age, you're reading a book, you don't really want the jargon, in fairness. And a lot of them, they were talking to you as though you were a banker. They were talking to me anyway. I just reading these books, I didn't understand them. So I thought I'm going to write a jargon-free book, the way somebody actually talks, the information that you want without having to, filter through a load of nonsense. So I wrote the book. It was for first-time buyers, and then how to obviously go beyond that. So that was, did very, very well. And then the next book I wrote was Born to be Beautiful, which...
You have that with you here, don't you?
I do, yeah. It's this book I wrote. And the reason I wrote this one was because I actually had my son. And obviously I was coaching at the time. And a lot of people, in particular women, but also men, they were affected by pregnancy and having a child, and in more ways than you might think. So, you know, having a child doesn't mean to say your life is going to be worse or better. It just means it's going to be different. And that's a different stage of life. So I felt that it was going to be very useful to help people, in particular women, to get back their figure, but most importantly to have an identity that wasn't just mom, but that could embrace being a mother, and being the best mother that they could be for themselves and their child and their family. I think it's very important that people are happy and are productive, regardless of what kind of, whether you're mom or whether you're not, you need to be happy. So it was a guide again for people who needed to feel that they needed to get back their sense of self. Confidence was a massive thing for people, you know, for a huge amount of people, and they don't talk about it because nobody wants to say I'm not confident. Sometimes it can be very obvious, but for people, but for many people, they're not confident. They come across as confident, and really inside they're not all that secure. So I'm very aware of that because I talk to so many people, and people confide in me and they tell me, and you know, I'm not talking about the stereotype, you know, I mean, you're talking celebrities, CEOs, people who are, you know, people wouldn't assume that they're not confident, but inside it might be a very different story. So that book is to help people with their confidence during the time when they're either pregnant or just had a baby.
Yeah, and I think it's a very important book for a lot of pregnant women, because there's a lot of women who become depressed after pregnancy, don't they?
Yes, so and
there's a lot of that.
Absolutely.
And I know someone personally who went as far as not wanting their own child after the pregnancy.
Yeah, there's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of emotions around it, because at the end of the day, your life completely changes. Not for the worse, but it can completely change. So, you know, it's like anything. I mean, you go into a life change, you have to embrace it. For some people, you know, you're expected, especially now, to be like a super mom. So, you know, you're meant to be the career woman. You're meant to be you look the perfect way. You're meant to be the perfect mother. You're meant to do the whole, you know, the whole lot together, and breeze through it. Well, realistically, you know, most people aren't like that. You still have to change dirty nappies, even if you're you know, in business and those kind of things. What I wanted to do was to normalize the fact that people don't have to be a super person to succeed. You don't have to be a super person to be happy. And I think a lot of people, apart from the hormonal issues that people will have naturally with pregnancy, a lot of people who become depressed, because depression is a feeling, and feelings change moment to moment depending on what you're doing inside your head or outside your head. And a lot of people can project into the future and say, well, you know, my life is going to be a disaster from now on, or I'm not going to be able to do this, or they feel bad about their body, and they start to ask themselves questions that aren't useful, and they'll come up with answers that aren't useful as well. And so I just wanted to normalise the fact that you don't have to be a super mom, but you can be the best version of you and be a loving mom at the same time. Which I think right now people need, and fathers and people who you can't have children, everybody needs to realise that you don't have to fit a perfect box. And social media is largely responsible for that, I think. Yeah.
Who covered it brilliantly? Elon Musk on one of the podcasts. He said that Instagram is basically a lot of people who are, you know, suspiciously super happy, super beautiful, you know.
Look, super happy, super beautiful. It sells because people go after what they aspire to be.
Yes.
But you also have to have the normalize. That's why I have no problem talking about my story, because you know, people see somebody and, you know, you're doing really well, you've this doing, you're doing that, and then they feel bad because they don't seem to be able to measure up. Well, okay, I'm doing this and this, but also, you know, there's this aspect to me that is completely normal, and that's okay too. You can have the two together. You don't have to have one-sided. So somebody may have a perfect body, yet they might be the most miserable person in the world. They could have the perfect body and be the most happy person in the world. But I think, again, that comes back to your mindset. Somebody wealthy, you know, they say money and evil go hand in hand. They say money doesn't bring you happiness. Money is a vehicle. So one person who's a billionaire can be very happy. Another person who's a billionaire can be very miserable. You know, so it depends on your mindset and how you're going to be in that situation. If I look at Instagram, I'm seeing probably similar pictures to the pictures that other people see. But I don't base myself on them. So if I look at something, I don't say, well, I'm not successful because, or I don't have this because. you know, you're going to come up with really bad answers if you start asking yourself those questions. Why? Because you have to visualize it. So I think it's much more useful to keep things normal and to take your head out of the clouds and just, you know, embrace your normal life. And everyone loves that. Everyone loves when people are normal. Everyone can succeed, I believe. That's why I wrote The Confidence to Succeed. You know, people see confidence as a thing. They see success as a thing. When they're not, they're actually states of mind and states of being.
Yeah, and that's okay. I also believe everybody can succeed. You know, maybe not in everything, obviously, you know, but in majority of things. That's why education, I believe, is very important, especially books like that, because knowledge like that doesn't exist on YouTube. Well, maybe it does, but not in that type of format, you know. And all your books are also available in audio versions, aren't they?
No, they're not. Some of them are, but not all of them. I'm a kind of the person. I just excuse me. I just wrote this. I didn't pursue the audio version. I may pursue the audio version. But I do enough talks and I do enough things that people hear me all the time anyway.
Oh, no, sorry. I saw them on Kindle now, so they're available in PDF version. So could we maybe talk a little bit more about the upcoming event that we have? Because, you know, I really would like to offer to people, you know, something like that, because Ireland doesn't do a lot of seminars. Doesn't it not? Like UK, you have a lot of stuff. America, but Ireland doesn't really, doesn't it not?
Well, actually, in 2009... the end of 2008, 2009, I was probably, myself and my partner were probably one of the first people in Ireland to bring in a seminar of its type. I think we were the first to bring in a seminar of its type. Excuse me. And we brought in a lot of internet marketers. The crash had just hit. And we looked at a way that we could help people make money without the traditional thing that they were used to, the 9-to-5 job, because they're just, you know, I mean, the crash was there, so a lot of those jobs went. So we brought in a lot of internet marketers, excuse me, people who were, you know, again, making money online in different ways. We brought people in from the stock market, people who are into property, and also people who were, again, mindset. We had seminars, you know, over 3 days, 12 or 13 speakers, and that kind of format. So again, it was bringing in people who people normally didn't get access to, but we happened to know them very well. Again, birds of a feather flock together. So we knew these people. We said, look, come in, let's educate people. Let's show them that there are opportunities, that you don't just have to do 9-to-5 to succeed. And it went on really, really well. So since then, you know, we've brought in a lot of different types of speakers that are relevant to today. So, you know, internet marketing is relevant today, but there's also lots of other things that are relevant, both for making money and also for mindset. So the event that we have on the 9th and 10th September in Dublin, it's a mixed bag. So there's 9 speakers and we're all talking about different things from mindset. There's internet marketing there that makes you money. There's property also. There's different types of investments that you can do. There's so many different, also using your mind. I mean, we have the world memory champion. He's absolutely incredible. But he shows you how to memorize, and memory is a huge thing when it comes to building relationships, for example.
Of course, remembering somebody's name is probably the most important.
It is the most important thing, remembering where you met them. I mean, never underestimate that. I mean, you meet somebody in a networking meeting, for example, and you don't see them for a year, and then you meet them again and you can, you know, say their name and you can say something about them. They feel appreciated, and appreciation is what drives people. So, you know, I mean, that in itself. We have Sharon Lecter, who she co-wrote a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was a bestseller worldwide. There's a game also created out of it, Cash Flow. And she did that with Robert Kiyosaki. So she's coming in.
Okay, yeah. So she really worked closely with him. Okay.
Yeah, she co-wrote that book. She's wrote a lot of books. Her husband, Michael Lecter, he's actually also coming, and he's...
Is she Irish?
No, American. She's very well known in America. Her books are, I mean, you know, huge. And
that's going to be a big event. Names like that in Ireland.
Absolutely. I mean, she talks it's property is her main thing. But her husband also talks about the importance of owning intellectual property, which again is another slant that people may not know about. So that's something that he'll be discussing. Then we have somebody flying in from Spain. They're discussing different opportunities on various different investments, how to make investments to do it right. You know, there's so many different aspects of it that anybody who attends will get a benefit out of it. You know, there's people out there teaching stuff really that's great, but especially since the whole COVID thing over the last 3 years, I mean, we've seen it so many times where people are teaching, there's overnight experts, and they're teaching stuff that doesn't work on a consistent basis and doesn't work in real life. So a lot of people end up broke or they end up miserable because they're not learning strategies that have been proven to work. So the people that we bring in are people who are actually walking the talk, not just talking it.
They make it happen. They really do. Yeah.
That's the event. It's called Make It Happen. And for that good reason. It is all about taking action, but it's about doing the actions that will get you results. It's not about just going out there doing everything, because everything, you can't be a jack of all trades if you want to be really good at it. You have to hone in on something and become so good at it that you get recognized for it. I don't claim to be a jack of all trades, because I think anybody who's successful isn't. You look at anybody and they specialize in something. You can be good at lots of things, but you can be brilliant in one or two. And so when we get speakers, they're brilliant in a specific area. So when you have multi-speakers, you've got a lot of brilliance in that room. Not only that, you have a lot of people who are of like mind. People who go to those events, they're success thinkers. They all want more for themselves. They're there to encourage other people. They've got the right mindset. They're there to learn. They're there also to expand their network. You expand a network of success thinkers and magic happens. I mean, we've seen it so many times. People create relationships. And I don't care what anyone says, business is built on relationships. It is not based just on product.
That's something I was going to touch off, because whoever is in business and lives in Ireland should go to an event like that, even from the marketing, from the point of view of meeting people and exchanging their phone numbers and stuff like that, I think.
100%. I mean, it's an absolute no-brainer. Look, if you want a different result, you've got to do something different. It's as simple as that. And if you're doing the same strategy and it's not working for you at the level you want, then it makes sense. I mean, you have to do something different. This is why I study people who were successful, and I intentionally, because I wanted to see what is it that they do, and I'm going to model it and see can I come up with the same result. Now, again, going back to what I was saying about a Michelin star chef, if I see somebody with an excellent recipe, and every time I use that recipe, I come up with the same result, it makes sense to use that recipe. So it's no different to business. If you see someone who's getting a result, I want to learn from the Elon Musk. I want to learn from Steve Jobs, Richard Branson. Why do you want to learn from them? Because consistently over time, they've delivered. So they're doing something that works. And for me personally, I think it's really important that if someone's learning, that they get information that has been shown to work. That's why we don't have every speaker under the sun to come into the events. They're chosen specifically for specific reasons, so that they actually suit the people that are there. So if somebody wants to expand their business, if they want to create, even for inspiration, even for something new, to get out of their heads and into something better, I mean, it's an absolute no-brainer to be at that event. And I'm not just saying because I run it. I mean, I have been to events. Events have been my life since I was, I would say, 18. I'm 43 now. So, I mean, I've gone to events as a sponge for information, and that has got me to where I am. So I will just continue to do that for people and bring them the best, where normally they can't access those people. But we have really good relationships.
That's one of the reasons why I'm going, because I like stuff like that. So every time I'm watching people in America, they're always talking about those seminars, sales seminars, meeting all those people. That's why I'm really eager to show to people who are watching us, because Ireland doesn't have that community, and it would be very cool to build something like that to the level of what they do in America, getting those speakers here, and that's exactly what you're doing, so that's why I really will emphasize people to book their tickets and come to something like that, because it's great for everybody.
Yeah,
great for the community, great for them, great for you.
MakeItHappenSeminar.com. That's where people go. It's very simple.
How many people should be expected at an event like that?
We don't know yet. I mean, there's still a month out, and it is Ireland, and people always book their tickets last minute. That's we're used to that at this stage. It's just a cultural thing, I suppose. For me personally, you'll always find international people who book their tickets first. Also, I think that's because they're committed. If somebody inconveniences themselves, or if they invest in themselves, I think anybody, again, in business, they invest in themselves, not just their business. An investment, your own investment in yourself is the most important thing of your business. Personally, that's what I have seen, that's what I believe, that's what I do for myself. And to be at events like that is really important. You're getting the information, you're being around the right people, you're getting the right vibe of what it is that you need to do. And yes, I would say to people, again, it's not just because I'm running it, book your ticket, invest in yourself. And when you inconvenience yourself, when you commit, people who are traveling from overseas, they have made a commitment. Guess what they're going to do when they go there? And I can guarantee you, because I've seen it so many times, when they go there, they're going to be the people who succeed most, because they've committed to it. They, if somebody goes to something for free, they might take the information, they may use it, they may not. I mean,
no, exactly. I used to do free trainings downstairs for the roof and stuff, and people who came in, They were some of them would have been, let's say, time wasters, But then when we started charging small fee, we got a different types of clients. There you go.
Because there's an investment. I mean, there's a certain.
They wouldn't cancel on us. They would show up on time.
Exactly, and when you show up on time, it is about that, and I'm glad you use that phrase, because when it is about showing up for yourself, and people need to value themselves to show up for themselves. And the speakers we're bringing, I mean, they're high quality speakers, and it is an investment in themselves, both of their time to be there. I would hope that anyone who comes to the seminar will take, even if it's 9 speakers, you're going to get there's something for everybody there, but to take the information, use it and implement it. And if you implement that information, your results will hugely improve. If you don't, well, you'll be the same place, you might as well not come. But if you take the information and use it, you can be guaranteed it'll work. Because it's been shown to work. If I bring you into it and I show you that recipe and you do that recipe, you'll come up with the same or very similar result.
I think who said it? I think Brian Tracy said it, that everybody shall invest, I think, 5% of your income into yourself, back into yourself.
Well, you look at Brian. I know Brian.
You know Brian personally, don't you? I've seen the picture with him.
I've worked with Brian. And, he's actually, to be honest with you, a lot of people base their stuff on Brian's material.
Of course. I go as far as 80s. I started listening to him when he was on cassette.
Yeah, so and he's still around. He's still teaching. Yeah. People are still following his methods. You see all the people that you would consider, the gurus, if you want to use that word, they're all basing it on, or many of them, on Brian's stuff. So Brian, he's an exceptional guy. He's an absolutely lovely guy, very, very humble, but he has systems that work. And we've had Brian over here as a speaker as well. Yeah, we've had Brian over a couple of times actually. We've done webinars with him. He's a lovely person. His information is golden. But again, you have to use that information in order for it to work. So our role is to bring speakers to you, to give you the information. I'll be speaking at it also. Pat Slattery will be speaking at it. There's just, I can't emphasize enough the importance of people investing in themselves. That is one of if you talk to anybody who is successful beyond average, you will find that they invest in themselves.
I think somebody asked me on Instagram recently, Lucas, I have €5,000. What should I invest in? And my answer was straight away, invest in yourselves. And then I just got a question mark, like, what do you mean? And what I said, audiobooks, seminars, books, networking. That's what I meant. And this is exactly what this event is all about. So if that person is watching me, book your tickets.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's what it's all about. And this is rare in this country, because Ireland, the population here is so small, isn't it? Like, for a country, we've only 4 million people, don't we?
Yeah, well, look, I think Ireland is changing the mentality. I think it's probably because, people from outside of Ireland have opened up new ideas, new ways of thinking, which I always think is a good thing, because it allows you to kind of open up what you already know into something that could be. And I think people are definitely more open to the idea. Also, because of certain medias, you'll have people who are doing very well. They can talk to people about it. So years ago, it might be a snippet of an edited version in a newspaper. Now people speak for themselves on things like podcasts, on YouTube, on social media, wherever, TV. So you're getting more information. And when people have more information, they can kind of pick and choose, where if they've only got like a certain set of information, they're going to operate off that. So I just think it's so important. It's so important that people learn and never stop learning. I will never stop learning, because there's always a new strategy. There's always a new or a more improved thing that you can do.
I'm going to ask you a random odd question, but please be as honest as you can. Why isn't that when we turn on the TV or when we turn on the radio, we don't hear information like this, which is vital? It's so important to the survival, but we don't hear it on the box. Why?
Because, in my opinion, it's because people get a hit off. You get a chemical release of adrenaline, of cortisol. And a lot of people like to talk about bad stuff. Also makes their lives feel a lot better when you see other people. There's stories going around at the moment that people are celebrating. People have been sacked, or they're celebrating negative stuff, or people being slated or whatever. And people enjoy that. I don't think they enjoy it at a personal level, but it creates drama.
Level, maybe.
Well, it's like if you watch, a soap, so Coronation Street or Emmerdale or Fair City or whatever. People like it. realistically, what is it? You're watching people who are arguing, people who are, being blown up or shot or dead, having affairs. There's nothing really positive about it. So people can buy into that. And that's okay for, if that's what they want to do. But you'll find that people who are getting really good results, they don't watch soaps that much.
Would you watch a soap? Would you watch TV?
I absolutely cannot stand it.
Thank you.
That's a very simple answer. I'm really choosy what I watch. I choose things that I feel. I mean, I like comedies because I know what they do, but I like comedies. Now and again, I'll watch a thriller. Simply, I just like the thinking aspect of it. I watch programs that are useful, but I don't watch a massive amount of TV because I'm just busy doing other things. And that's important. Everyone likes I think, again, it's realistic. Everyone likes a bit of downtime and, doing nothing.
Look, we work and enjoy ourselves from time to time, but like the TV and the radio, not to be... I don't want to say too much. I don't want to be making enemies in the TV industry, but I think the TV is specifically programming people to be at that lower level of existence, isn't it?
Well, look, if you look at soap operas, right, so we call them soaps now. The soap opera was originally created by detergent companies. That's why it's called soap opera.
Yeah, so they could market soap in between the ads.
Correct. And it was for, years ago when women were just primarily at home only, they'd watch the soap operas. And they were sponsored by detergents, which is very clever of them. But at the same time, they're not great for your mind. I have no issue whatsoever what people watch. I don't really care what they watch. Yeah.
We don't want to create haters here.
And I work with a lot of people on TV, and I don't think sometimes, you have a lot of people presenting things, but it's really, it's given for entertainment. Reality shows at the moment are the big thing because people like, same with social media, they like dipping in and looking what other people's lives are like.
But it has absolutely no technical advantage on their lives, isn't it?
No, and look, you don't need to be on a learning mission all of the time. But if you carve out a time of your day, every day, just even if it's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, if it's a weekend like the event, you carve out a particular time every day just totally to focus on your goals.
What would be your golden recipe for somebody who is watching us and they want to enter the world of learning about business, about success? What would it be? 20 minutes a day in the morning? What did you start? How did you start? Because you've obviously went through a ton of stuff in your lifetime. What's your golden recipe?
Well, the first recipe is stop comparing yourself. That is the number one thing. Stop comparing yourself. You're good enough exactly as you are. Get your mindset right. Mindset is the number one thing, and then learn skills that are relevant to what you need to do. Put your pride away, put your I know everything out of the way. Be teachable, as I said. It depends on what specific industry you're doing. Have your you can do a thing where you've got, say, based on 12 hours. So what you can do is you do like half hour if you just want to do it as an exercise to see how productive you are. Actually, Pat, I got this from Pat, and I think it's very, very good. It's where you block your time off in half-hour increments. So you track your 12 hours, and you look at what did I do, for example, from 9 o'clock to 9:30, from 9:30 to 10:30, or to 10, from 10:30 or 10 to 10:30, and so on. And you'll see that a lot of the time that you don't have, as you tell yourself, you spend it doing absolutely nothing productive.
Rubbish.
Yeah. So what if you were to use that time and to actually say, okay, well, this half an hour is solely dedicated to whatever it is relevant to the business you want to create or your goal that you want to create. So if you dedicate half an hour only a day, let's say, if you're really productive, you'll delegate more. But if you're just even to dedicate one half an hour, let's just say between 9 and 9:30, to focus solely on your goals, you will achieve so much more than you will just moseying through life doing nothing. But then that's a choice. But a half an hour everyone can do. Even 10 minutes everyone can do. Even to watch something positive on YouTube, to learn something new that takes 4 to 5 minutes, to read something. Again, it doesn't have to be a full book. It can be even a few lines. Just something to pop into your head that gives you that extra information.
So I think a lot of that is to do with persons what I call it is success or money thermostat. If somebody's money or success thermostat is not set very high, they're not going to go through all the hassle to set in a half an hour for the learning and for this or for that. I think person needs to be hungry for success, needs to have that burning hunger. I will either achieve it or I don't want to be living on this plane.
You get hunger when you're around the right people. If you're around people who do not have a high success and money thermostat, you will not.
No.
If you're around people who say to you, you tell someone you want to be a multimillionaire or a billionaire, and they laugh at you, well then if you are around those people all the time, then you're never going to get there, because it's constantly visualizing, I'm going to fail. Whereas if you're around other multimillionaires, it's a possibility, it's a done deal. It's just a matter of time. You know, that is why it is so important to be around the right people. You look at your even 10 people you're around every month. Don't even just look at it a day, look at it a month. The 10 people you're around, aside from social media, if you're around 10 people per month, you know, look at their income. If they're all, and I have nothing wrong, by the way, with people who need assistance financially, okay? But if you're all your circle are not working yet, are capable of working, or are not doing anything yet, are capable of doing it, then that's the bar they're going to set you, and you're going to fit in. Liken it to, and I always liken it, you know, as you become part of your environment. If you imagine, if you start working in a bank, right, and on day one, let's just imagine that you dress like gothic, right? So you like the whole black makeup, the black clothes, you know, you've got studs, earrings, whatever. And you go into a bank as a bank worker and you put your uniform on because that's what you're required to do. You still have your look going on that you prefer. After a while of being there, you will probably tone that down a bit. You might start to take out piercings. You might start to, you know, wear your hair a different way or whatever. So you blend into your environment. You see it with children very easy, but adults do it. You will blend into your culture, you blend into your environment, you will blend into those 10 people. So if you have 10 people on low incomes, if you have 10 people with a really crappy attitude, if you have 10 people, you know, with a fantastic attitude, 10 people who are wealthy, whatever it is, who you surround yourself, you will become, or at least you will take on their beliefs for the most part. Which that's a conscious decision. I made that decision that I choose who I'm around with. You can love everybody. I mean, you know, you could have I have a massive family. You can have a very mixed bag. You can have a very negative family, and you don't need to disown them, but you limit your time. And let's say open up your time to people that will encourage you, people that motivate you, people that will give you ideas, people that will open up doors for you. You're not going to have a different result if you don't do something different.
And then someone might say, well, how am I going to meet all these people who want
Come
to be
to
millionaires?
the event.
Come to the bloody event.
I could tell people a million times, and there'll be a certain amount of people on this. We always call it, you know, an 80-20 rule, if you've ever heard of that.
Oh.
Okay. So you'll have, 20% of the people, right? So that's 20%, 20 people out of 100 will come to this event. The other 80% will do absolutely nothing. You have to decide which one are you. 20% of people will be successful in any given area. 80% won't, whether they have capability or whether they don't. It is a decision and it's a choice whether you want to do it or not. You don't have to have the hunger at the beginning. I don't really know that many people who have a real hunger for an outcome at the beginning, but you get it when you start to get results. A perfect example is my son. He's 10. He wrote his first book at 7.
Oh.
Yeah, you'd have him in here.
Jesus, he'll be son.
But this about 10 days ago, so this week, just before, he set up a little shop. It's called Ashton's Shop. And he goes out with a little table, and people would think, you know, somebody said to me, people are going to think your child is so poor. I said, I really don't care what people think. It is the best learning exercise for him. So the first day he made €8. He's selling some of his stuff that he doesn't want anymore. He made €8 the first day. He made 7 the first day, 8, and then he made 5 yesterday. I know I'm not going to have him doing that every day, but I'm allowing it to do, but he really wants to do it. The first day he went out, he wanted €8 because he wanted something. Now I can give him €8, but he decided that I said to him, look, try and make it. So this is what he did. The same, he said he wanted an electric car when he was 7. He said, Mom, will you get it for me? I said, I could get it for you, but I won't, because he needs to learn how to do it. So I said to him, I didn't say I won't. I said, if you were to get it, how would you make the money? At 7, I said that to him. And he said, well, Mom, I actually was writing a book at the time. And he said, Mom, maybe I could write a book. And I said, okay. I didn't shoot it down. Most people say, oh, he's 7. There's no way he can write a book. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I want you to tell me your story that you want to do. And I want you to draw pictures that will illustrate that story. And that's exactly what he did. Took him 3 weeks to type it up. He did this during lockdown. He did it all. Now, we put that out there for him. So obviously it needs to sell. And it was amazing. Adults thought that I wrote it instantly, and actually commented on social media that they thought I wrote it. But I didn't. But what I had done was I actually took photos of the drawings that he did to prove that he did it. And I'll never take any credit for that. He did it all himself. I got the images digital. But he put it up, and he decided then after he didn't want an electric car, he wanted a scooter, and he bought his own scooter. So I will never shut him down. If he wants to do an idea, it's okay. How will you make that work? And he's actually in at the moment, he's writing another book. And
do you mind me asking what's the name of that book? I might just buy it just to support him because I love it.
It's The Sad Boy Who Got Help. And basically it's about a guy, he's crying in a park, and Ashton and me go and help him. You know, it's lovely to see yourself illustrated, I must say. It gives a good perspective.
Where could I buy it?
Amazon. It's on Amazon, you know, and it's doing really
I'll
well.
get it just to support him on it because I love this idea. And there you go. Good. Maybe you should write the next book about parenting.
Yeah, you know, I think parenting is a very individual thing. There's so many people who give advice in it, and no child is the same.
Yeah, I suppose.
You know, I mean, you have if you tell somebody you have a child, instantly, well, this is what I did, and this is what I did, and this is what you should do. I mean, my child walked at this age, my child talked at this age. You know, every parent is different. Some, you know, every child will play up now and again. I mean, and every child will have their moments. So I think the best advice I would give any parent is to never label your child. Never label your child as they have this so they can't do that. Never give your child something. So, you know, my child has this so they can't do that, or my child is this so they can't do that. And allow their ideas to explore. Never shut them down. Even if they sound mad, just never shut those ideas down. You know, and just explore them. See, rather than saying, well, you can't do that, you're only 7 or you're only 10. Say, okay, how can we do that?
Jesus, there's a brilliant story of a woman who grew up on a farm and she wanted to paint paintings. I've heard it at some seminar. I'm not sure what's the name of that lady is, but maybe you will be familiar with this story. So this lady wanted to paint, and from the ages when she was 10, she said it to their parents, and the parents said, "No, we've been farmers from so many generations. Your life is to be a farm lady." Okay, so she was farming all her life, and as she retired in her 70s, she started doing the paintings, and her paintings were so incredible. I got goosebumps across my body right now just as I'm saying it. Her paintings started selling for hundreds of thousands when she retired. And the lesson in that was that if the parents didn't stop her, she would have lived a completely different life.
And parents can also be, and if you liken a parent are just 1 or 2 people, they're just people. Imagine that the people you surround yourself with, they may not be your parents, but they're people. So they will influence you as
Greatly.
Well, sometimes even more than a parent will. You know, and you look at the average person, right? The average person, if they're programmed to feel like, or told that they should get a 9-to-5 job and they will retire at 65. That's the template that most people get. Now, so they will go into a job, you know, that they may not like, but they'll stay with it because it's a safe job. I'm not telling anyone, by the way, just in case anyone's saying, I'm not telling anyone to give up a 9-to-5 if they like it. I'm not telling anyone to don't get a job. I'm simply saying to look at what it is that you truly want. And if a job is what you want, fantastic. If it's not, then do something different. But if you look at the average person, they're living for other people. They're not doing what it is that they really want. And they might get to the end of their life and they look back and they say, well, you know, I shouldn't have probably listened to those people as much. I should have lived that dream that I had. If you have a dream, and even though, you know, it might sound crazy, you've got to find people who are as crazy as that idea to make it happen. Like, you think about it, even a phone. Can you imagine 60 years ago saying to somebody that we will now be able to see people on a device in our hand, the size of our hand, and be able to talk to them and see them halfway across the world? Someone would think you're absolutely crazy.
And Nikola Tesla said that's going to happen, and they marked him as crazy.
Yeah, and they would be. You know, listen, you're crazy. You're crazy if you're poor. You're eccentric if you're rich. Simple as that. But it's the exact same system, but it just depends what people call you. But you have to be around people who have those ideas that, right, okay, it doesn't exist now, but maybe it could. How can we make it happen? What if it was? And the quality of your questions will determine the quality of your results. And that's why with Ashton, I will never shut him down. You know, he decides he's calling himself a businessman at the moment, and he's making business. He actually probably made more yesterday than some people that are adults. You know, and to me, I think if people encourage people more, not just their kids, they should encourage the people around them. If you have a friend that wants to do something, never, ever, ever say to them, you're mad. You can't do that. That's pointless. Or I know someone who did that in fair play. They tried to do it. It didn't work. There's a million things that didn't work, but there's always one that did.
Unfortunately, it's not like that. You know, Ireland might be one of the best places to be in business and to be doing stuff like that. But you know, in for example, where I'm from, if you're in a small town and you start doing some business or making money or jump out of the rat race, that is not going to be perceived as a You're basically going to be shut down by everybody.
Okay, so there's two aspects there. First of all, who are you around? Second of all, the world is now wide open, not just your own country. So again, the quality of your questions. I may live in a small town. I'm from a small town of 5,000. You know,
Irish people are different. I don't know what it is. Irish people are more. They're different. I don't know what it is. And you can, if you have any deeper conversation with a person from Eastern Europe who grew up in those big grey dark flats, you know.
Well,
reality is a little bit different.
It depends. Yeah, but you have people who may have grown up in circumstances
I suppose
similar here, or you have somebody who may, for example, they've grown up in a really rural area in Ireland where farming is your option. I mean, if I'm from the west of Ireland, there are very remote places there, and that is your option. There's no other options. Go into another country. I mean, I remember talking to a guy. He was travelling. He actually used to give me a lift to college, and he travelled the same road for 26 years. And I said to him, doing the same thing, he was in construction, and he'd get up at the same time every morning. He did the same routine for 26 years. And he told me he was taking a 2-week holiday. And I said, are you going somewhere nice? Are you doing something, you know, what would you like to do? And he said, no. He said, you know, I missed that drive, so I'll probably just go on that drive. And I said, okay, because he's got into such a routine. And he was quite serious, but he's got into such a routine of that's what his life is, which is fine if it works for him. But for many people, you know, you have to... A small town no longer exists. Yes, a small town in the physical sense exists, but you can create relationships from online. You can fly to other places. You can, you know, bring people in, even bring people in by, you know, media. I mean, there's so many different ways
in the social media era. It's truly like that, I suppose. But the mindset is still a mindset of a small town person. That's what it is.
As I said, I'm from a small town. I mean, everybody knows you. Everyone talks about you. Everyone talks about, you know, makes up rumours. When I was in hospital, I had a baby apparently, which I didn't have. I also had a tumour, which I didn't have. I remember starting work in a restaurant and somebody came up and they apologised to me, and I thought they'd done something, and they said, I'm really sorry about that, Donna. And I said, what are you sorry about? And they said, well, you know, you had cancer. No, I didn't have cancer, but that's what the rumour was. So people, it doesn't matter whether you're in a small town, whether you're in a small circle. You can be in Dublin, you can be in Poland, you can be in Timbuktu, wherever you are. It's the circle you intentionally, as an adult, you've got to do it intentionally. This is why, like going to an event. And again, it's put yourself intentionally in front of people who are going to help you achieve your goals. If you're in a small town and you don't feel you can achieve your goals, fly out for that weekend, create some relationships and maintain those relationships online. You know, it can be that simple. I met Mark Victor Hansen, who I said was the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Excuse me. I originally actually followed his stuff. My mom used to read that book to me.
Chicken Soup for the Soul?
She used to read it to me all the time when I was in hospital. It's
a very famous book, isn't it?
Everywhere. It is, yeah. And that was before the internet, so that tells you how powerful it was. And I actually acknowledged Mark in one of my books as to thank him. It was in the first book. And to thank him for being an inspiration to me. I contacted his office and I said that, you know, I was really grateful to him. That's it. I had no agenda whatsoever. Anyway, it turned out I ended up being friends with him. And then he introduced me to Bob Proctor and so on. You know, so it opens up doors. It opens up new opportunities. But if you're going to have your, say, small town mentality and not go beyond that, well, then you can expect yourself to do exactly the same as everyone in that small town is going to do. But that's a choice, and I'm not.
Nobody's going to knock on the door. Well, mister, there's success coming for you.
Well, you know what? Sometimes people will knock on a small town person's door and they still don't open it. And that is the fact. You can give somebody an opportunity from a small town, from even a village, with 3 people in it, and they still won't take it because they're too worried about what other people think. And you've got to stop worrying about what other people think. There will always be people who hate you. I'm sure people will watch this and there'll be some who hate me, some who love me. That's not my business. I'm on my goal track, and what other people think of you really isn't your business. What other people think of you, will it matter in 10 years' time? The only way it will is if you let their thinking affect you. It's as simple as that. You know, I mean, people preoccupying themselves with, well, such and such did a big rant about me on social media, or they did this, or they did that, or they're telling people. If you preoccupy your time with that, you're giving chunks of your lifetime away to that person. And at the end of it, you're going to look back at your lifeline and you're going to say, why did I give a week, a month, a year, 3 years of my lifetime and energy to that person when I could have taken that same energy and fueled it into something better? And that's what I said at the beginning. You take whatever it is, you put it and you fuel it into something productive. I did it intentionally because really I had only another option, which was to die. They were my 2 options. And I chose not to. And I chose to, if, you know, I could have easily given up. And especially when I was diagnosed with epilepsy after the car crash, I could have given up then, because it was, how do I get my life back? I'd lost my place in college. I had no job. You know, I'd been out of the loop for 6 months. So, you know, what would I do then? I had to go back. I started working in a restaurant. And the reason I started working in a restaurant was because I knew that would have helped me with my social skills.
Yes.
I broke 2, you know, those round the trays that are, you know, maybe they're around like 12 inch in diameter. I broke 2 of those with those trays full of glasses in the first 20 minutes. That's how nervous I was. The owner knew my family, so he didn't sack me. But in the first 20 minutes, I broke 2 full trays of glasses. But I had to keep going with that, because the way I looked at it was, if I can learn how to talk to people that I don't know, that will then allow me to talk to people who I really want to talk to.
And did you struggle with that before?
Hugely.
Oh,
hugely.
You came out off a long way.
Yeah. I mean, I and I'm not joking when I say this. I was actually afraid to walk across the road on my own. And I wasn't a kid. You know, I used to actually have my mother walk across. And sometimes, I mean, I remember my sister, I don't use sunbeds. I never use sunbeds. But she decided, you know, to be nice, and she bought me a sunbed session. And I told her, be back in, it was 20 minutes. I said, please be back in 20 minutes, because there was no waiting room. It was upstairs in the beauticians. There was no waiting room. And she didn't come back. She was late for everything. And she didn't come back for maybe 15 minutes. It felt like 3 hours. I had a panic attack simply because she didn't come back for that length of time. Now, I had to, so this is why I'm saying you don't have to have hunger for success at the beginning. I didn't. All I had to do was think, okay, this is what I want. Might be a far way off, but all I have to do is practice this step, push myself a little bit out of my comfort zone, then master that, then practice the next bit, then master that. And that's why I call everything I do Master Your Mindset, because it is about mastering each step. And once you get the momentum going, then it's a lot easier. Then once you bring in other people, it's much, much easier, because you have contacts, you have a new network, you have relationships, you have opportunities, that other people open up for you. So you don't have to have that hunger at the beginning to succeed. You just do one step at a time and master each and just keep focused and keep your mindset right.
Keep an eye on it. Brilliant. I also want to touch off something, because if this is the type of information you're giving out for free, I really wonder what's on your website on the paid membership. Could you tell us something about this? Because you're charging very little. It's only $7 a month, isn't it? Yep. For access to a bunch of videos, and then you send an individual video every week. Could we talk about that a little bit? Because it's a perfect way for somebody who maybe has social anxiety, doesn't want to come to an event, but still they want to make themselves better. So I think this is a great opportunity for them, isn't it?
Yeah, I rebranded my website shortly after lockdown, actually. And the reason I did was because over lockdown, I would say at least 2,000 people, at least, contacted me asking me for help. At least. And I know that seems like a lot, but when you're online, you know, a lot of people do contact you, and I have a very good reputation for getting results. So I can't be everywhere all of the time. And I do coaching, but it's quite specific. So I thought, there are people who will have excuses that I can't do it because of this, or can't do it because of this finances, or can't do whatever, and they come up with all these excuses. So I thought, I'm going to make something available to everybody for very little money that will require me to do a lot of work at the beginning, and will require a certain amount of my time every month. And it's numbers. So whether there's one person there, whether there's 1 million people there, it's still a certain amount of my time. So nobody has an excuse. Everyone can afford the $7, which works out at about €5 a month. Every week, every Monday, they'll get a video into their inbox. It'll be coaching. There'll be action steps to do. All manageable. So they're like your bite-sized moments right the way along. Then every month, there's an interview. Sometimes it's me teaching, like a teaching workshop, and then sometimes I will bring somebody in, we'll interview, but it's always topic based, relevant to what's going on at the moment. So I mean, I've had loads of people in there. I've had Skylar Jett from the Commodores has been in there. I've had last 2 weeks ago, Darren Holden from the High Kings. High Kings, very well known folk band around the world, Irish. So I've had loads of athletes in there, world champions, and they're all there to, again, it's I've good relationships with these people, but they're there to give advice that most people don't get access to because they don't have those relationships with people. So I've built these over the years, like over however many years, 20 years, whatever it is. I've built those relationships and they're maintained. So they know what I'm about. They know my intention behind it. And I know where I came from, and I know the difficulties that I went through, and I never, ever, ever want anyone to go through those difficulties. And to be honest with you, whether somebody has epilepsy, whether they have anorexia, or whatever it is, everyone has their own thing going on. And that could be just a mood thing, or it could be an insecurity thing, or it could be a chip on their shoulder, or whatever. Everyone has their thing going on. I don't want people to live in that space because I know what it's like. But I also know what it's like to live in the other space, which is being driven, being happy, waking up, you're feeling productive, or going to bed feeling productive, waking up with a bit of a wanting life. And I always say live fully. So I know the two elements of it, and I know how to get the one that I live now and that I really enjoy. And I want everyone to do that. So when I set up the membership site, it was, and there's also a self-discovery library in it, which is hours of videos, which would be topic based again. So there's videos on like conformity, there's videos on imposter syndrome, there's videos on willpower, there's videos on morning routines, there's audios there as well.
Once you pay that €7 a month, you have access to all of those videos.
You have access to it all.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And they're exclusive. They're to the back end of the site.
So you can't find them anywhere else, basically.
No, no, and those interviews aren't open to the public either. So it's a coaching, a mini coaching, if you like. It's a version of what I do. But for some people, if they follow what I say and if they follow the things that they do, they get results. I mean, I have loads of testimonials from people. My own coaching, obviously, it's more expensive because I really value my time, and I think everyone else should. And I think that if people are giving stuff away for free, I mean, I would not expect, for example, I would not go into a doctor and say, give me your treatment for free. I would not go into Dunn's and say, give me your bread and your butter or your washing powder, give it to me for free. So I believe in what's called fair exchange. So the level of results that I get are worth it. So if anyone wants to know, they're welcome to contact me. But I get results, and that's the key.
Brilliant. What I also noticed, you had a very rocky start, and also from all the people that I invite here and from all the people I used to learn from, I noticed that usually people who had a rocky start or had some terrible experiences, maybe as a child or as a teenager, those people really, really succeed. Or and people who, let's say, have been fed with a silver spoon, or they've been inherited large amounts of money, they don't have that hunger. Isn't that the way?
I think a lot of success is built on desperation.
Yes.
So if someone, for example, you'll find, if you look it up factually, a lot of entrepreneurs that are very, very successful have no academic education beyond 15. That's not that people, I'm not just an academic, I have an academic education myself, so I'm not, all education is good. I mean, if I know it, if there's a doctor, I want to make sure he's, he knows how to do surgery. So academic is good. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, you have a lot of people who haven't an education beyond 15. So what is the alternative? They either do something to make money, or they end up homeless, realistically, or they end up living at home all the time or whatever. So there's a level of desperation. My level of desperation was I was going to be miserable and ultimately, on a very serious level, die if I didn't do something different. They were my choices. So out of desperation, that's why I'm saying you don't have to have the hunger at the beginning. I didn't have the hunger at the beginning, no pun intended, but I didn't have any drive to. The drive came after I started to build that momentum. And that's, it's like, I'm sure there are a segment of the population, if they want to be, for example, a singer, or they want to be an athlete, and they see somebody and they go, I want to be that star. But you'll find that a lot of people don't have that initially. They just want more, or they want better. And if someone wants better, then they just have to move out of the comfort zone a little bit and then step up and keep stepping up. And that's why I will always step up. I'm not finished yet. I will always step up and keep learning and keep doing and look what is happening next, what's the opportunities. If you do that, it doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter if you have a silver spoon or not, you'll do really well.
Brilliant. I think we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. Could we tell the listeners, where could they find you? What's your name on Instagram if somebody was looking for you?
Author Donna Kennedy. But if they go to donnakennedy.com, it's the easiest.
That's the best way,
yeah, it's
isn't
the
it?
easiest. So all my handles are on that. So go to donnakennedy.com.
Yeah, and that's where they can find your books, also your private membership. And then also I wanted to speak a little bit about the event. Could you mention a couple of the speakers that are going to be at the event so people can Google them as well?
Yeah, we have Sharon Lecter, as I said, for Rich Dad Poor Dad, and other books as well that she's written. We have Michael Lecter, we have Antonio Lopez from Spain, we have Carl Newton from Spain, we have Pat Slattery, he's Irish, a very well known entrepreneur, myself, then we have Tony McCarthy, who's an internet marketer, and we also have Paul O'Mahony, who is an internet marketer. He has huge following.
So well done. So there's going to be a lot of more about marketing, which is what should be covered in today's day and age, because it doesn't matter what business you're in, doesn't matter what product you have. If you can't sell it, you ain't going to make it, isn't it?
You know what? There are so many opportunities right now, like a huge amount of opportunities. People think there's none. There are absolutely loads of opportunities right now. The key is to be in the right place. And the event, I can tell you, if there's something for everybody at it, that it will open your mind to new possibilities. So if anyone is struggling, if anyone is wondering, you know, what do I need to do or whatever, you'll get it. Worst case scenario, you're going to have a great time. We're also having a gala ball to recognise outstanding achievements that people have had over the last 3 years. And again, that's been a huge nomination process. And, you know, there's been a lot of work involved in it, but we're going to recognise, I think you're up for an award, aren't you? Congratulations
as far as I know.
for podcasting. You know, I mean, there are people who have really stood out. I mean, you've done a lot of great things over the last few years. People have recognised that. I mean, you've obviously we're actually not part of the judging panel at all, because we actually did that intention. We know so many people. So we don't want anybody saying, well, you gave them because. So instead, we remain completely impartial. But obviously now we know who's been in the final. And all deserve to be there. You know, all of these people and yourself, you know, you've really stepped up. And that's what it's about. It's not about being perfect. It's about constantly stepping up, constantly delivering, giving something to people that grows society, that grows mentality, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be on day 2, the evening of day 2. So it's going to be an incredible weekend. I can't wait.
I can't wait to see you there. Okay, I think we're going to wrap up for today. Thank you for coming, Donna. It was a pleasure to meet you today. Thank you very much.